What's going on, everybody? We got another great episode of Between the Hash Marks. Of course, we got the one, the only, James Kokolek. James, how the hell are you?
I am doing great. As always, it's beautiful. We're doing better than the people in the Northeast right now. We're both Northeastern guys. Yes. We're from the Northeast, and we're down here in South Florida, as you guys know. And the Northeast is having a nor'easter right now.
Yeah.
And how hot is it? I think it's like 87 outside and sunny.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful. There's a slight ocean breeze that's just drafting through. It's absolutely beautiful outside. I know all my family up north, they all lost power over the past couple of weeks. They're probably losing power again.
Welcome to West Palm Beach, baby.
Yeah, right. But it's becoming an every show kind of thing, but we are absolutely loaded on this show. Again, it's absolutely insane. Every single show, it becomes just the topics that we have to choose from. We make a great show every time, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So, the best part about our show, we're growing each and every time. And like we sat down on Tuesday for 3.5 hours and we discussed how do we want to move the show forward. So we're going to add different segments. We're going to, come up with promos and things of that nature. We want to make this thing go over the top.
It's an exciting time, especially now that we're in the studio. This is the third or fourth time we're in the studio again. I mean, you guys can probably notice with the sound quality that we're just everything's just going in the right direction. So it's pretty freaking awesome.
The best part about all of it is that our information is the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That tops
We've never been slacking on that.
No, never. Which is the most important part. Obviously, the audio quality and having a flow and things like that, all that matters, but the information is the most important part.
Absolutely.
But hold that thought. We're going to get this podcast rolling.
Yep.
But today is one of my best friend's birthday, Tom Coyle, up in Middletown, New Jersey. I want to wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday, bro. I wish I could be up there celebrating with you, but I hope you're having a good time without me. I'll see you soon, hopefully. Happy birthday again.
Yeah.
And let's get this show on the road.
Absolutely. I want to wish happy birthday as well. But we have the NCAA tournament review. Wow. It has been a crazy tournament so far. Probably one of the craziest tournaments we've ever seen. We have the Sweet 16 starting today. We'll be going over that as well. Of course, we have the final quarter, hitting a wide variety of topics all across the sporting world. But first, you know what time it is. It's time for my opening rant.
Your number one source for sports.
You know who I can't stand? Kevin Durant.
He looks like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had a kid.
Now, who can argue with that?
I hate Boston.
I'm the biggest Miami Heat hater you'll ever meet.
I just don't understand where you're getting your bogus information from.
What the hell are you even talking about?
Well, I'm sorry you're too freaking sensitive to handle the truth.
You think I'm crazy? I'm just getting warmed up.
You're now Between the Hash Marks with James Kokolak and Sean McCabe.
All right, about 5 days ago, the NFL world was shocked when the New York Jets moved up 3 spots from the 6th overall pick in this year's NFL draft to the 3rd overall pick, making a huge trade with the Indianapolis Colts. In exchange for moving up 3 picks, the Jets sent Indy the 6th overall pick, 2 second-rounders in this year's draft, and 1 second-rounder in the 2019 draft. Now, Twitter and social media had a flippin' field day with this, completely bashing the Jets for moving up just 3 spots, calling it a completely stupid decision all across the board. Even Jets fans themselves were bashing their own team, and even this guy right in front of me, James, you were saying that you don't even know how much longer you can take any of this.
But you know what? And it's true. And if we grab a quarterback with this, I'll let you finish in a second. But if we grab a quarterback, it will all be worth it. I've kind of settled down since the trade went.
Well, that's what I'm telling everybody. You need to relax. You need to slow down. Breathe.
I'll give why I was mad when you're done.
All right. So are you ready for this? You're taking your deep breath. All right. The New York Jets, who are prone to making terrible offseason decisions, made the best decision of this entire offseason. And I myself, a diehard Bostonian, is going to tell you why. I have 4 specific reasons right here. The NFL, this is the first reason. The NFL is completely reliant on what quarterback you have playing and how good that quarterback is currently playing. Yeah, journeyman Josh McCown had a surprising top 10 statistical season amongst quarterbacks last year, but he's older than the forgotten leftover pasta in the back of your grandma's fridge. The Jets need a quarterback, and if you wait for a quarterback at 6, you're going to end up with Baker Mayfield, who is a less athletic version of Johnny Manziel and has the winning attitude of Ryan Leaf. Now, the Jets have locked themselves into either getting Josh Rosen out of UCLA or Josh Allen out of Wyoming. But from what I've heard, they really, really like Josh Rosen, who has the IQ of a freaking astronaut and has played in some pretty big games as well. Number 2 reason, the Jets boxed out the Bills, their division rivals, who also need a quarterback after getting rid of Tyrod Taylor. The Bills are sitting at 9th in the draft, and there was a lot of talk of them trying to make a trade to move up to the Broncos, who are sitting at number 5, to draft a quarterback. Now the Bills must find a way to either overpay to get the 2nd overall pick from the Giants or to completely give up their farm system or just about everything for the number 1 overall pick from Cleveland, which Cleveland is not going to give up at all. Either way, it's a win-win. Even if the Bills do move up, the Jets will still have the guaranteed option of either having Rosen or Allen. 3rd reason, you got to go big for the QB that you really like. And if you like a QB, you got to go and get him. And I think the Jets have that mindset with that they have a list of 3 quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and Josh Allen, as these are all pretty similar guys. And then there's a huge drop-off from there. Now, the reason why you need to really go up and get that quarterback, here's your example. Look at the Eagles in 2016 when they traded up to the 2nd overall pick with the Cleveland Browns. We've talked about it many times on this show. The Eagles gave up their 8th overall pick that year, a 3rd round pick for that year, a 4th round pick for that year, a 1st round pick for 2017, and a 2nd round pick in this year's 2018 draft. In exchange, the Eagles got Carson Wentz, who just led the Eagles to a phenomenal season in which they got the 1st overall seed in the NFC, and before he got hurt. And oh yeah, they won the freaking Super Bowl. But Carson Wentz looks like he's going to be the best young QB in the league, if not the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the entire league itself, if not higher. 4th reason, even if you choose wrong this year with your quarterback, it still doesn't cripple you that much going forward. For example, look at when the Redskins traded for the 2nd overall pick that became RG3 with then the St. Louis Rams. They traded away 3 first-round picks and a 2nd rounder to the Rams, and up until this season, the Rams had not made the playoffs, while the Redskins won a division title with RG3 once, and RG3 is still considered a huge bust, even though he won a division title. Didn't win a playoff game, but he was doing very well in that game until he got hurt. And the Redskins won another division title without RG3. So they have 2 division titles before this year when the Rams had 0. So, and if it weren't for RG3's nagging injuries, he wouldn't be considered this huge bust. Now look, the reward in this situation greatly outweighs the risk. The reward, best case scenario, you win the Super Bowl by 2020. That's in 2 years' time, just like the Eagles did. The worst case scenario, you are still in the same exact boat that you are currently now in, but you prevented your division rival from taking a player that both teams thought were really good. Look, as a New England supporter, even I can admit that much of the New England success has been because the AFC East has been trash for the past 15 to 20 years, and Tom Brady will be retiring somewhere between the next year and the next 3 years, no matter what. This division will be completely up for grabs no matter what. So you either hit a home run now, just in time for the Brady departure, or you have to restart again in a couple of years when it won't matter because the division is going to be completely up for grabs. I also want to add that not getting Kirk Cousins allowed all of this to happen, which is a great thing because you aren't spending a ridiculous amount of money on a quarterback who was actually worse than Josh McCown last year. Not to mention Kirk Cousins has been trending downwards for the past 3 seasons. So you kind of dodged a bullet there. Now, if you hit correctly on the correct quarterback like the Eagles did, you will not have to pay your quarterback for a few years after the fact when you have to actually start paying quarterbacks real money, and you can go into free agency next season because you have a buttload of money and you can spend on players like the Eagles did last year to help them win a Super Bowl, and like the Eagles are still currently doing. Where am I wrong, James? Where am I wrong?
Well, you're not wrong about a lot of stuff. Now, I was livid when this happened because my main thought was, all right, we moved up 3 picks. It wasn't like we moved up 12 picks. We moved up 3 picks. And also, we gave up our second-round pick this year, a second-round pick that we traded for this year, and a second-round pick that's ours next year. Now, second-round players usually turn out to be pretty decent players more often than not. That's why they're taken as high as the second round. So my immediate thought was, wow, the Jets have so many holes, and they just gave up everything for a player they don't even know is going to be there at 3. But, you make a good point about the 3 quarterbacks being so basically an equal grade, even though I think Darnold has the highest.
That's what the Jets grade them as.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
what I
that
mean.
makes sense.
But I mean, I kind of like the trade at this point, though, now that I've had time to sit down and think about it. I mean, if we were on the air when that happened, I might have thrown the mic through the wall.
I wish we were.
But you know what? You're right, though. If they get a quarterback, and I'm thankful that we're talking about my team here because it kind of amps me up a little bit. But if they get a quarterback, the New York Jets, then that shifts everything. That's the one thing they've been missing for so long. They've always had a good defense. Every year they got a pretty decent defense, no matter who's back there. Because they seem to get defensive coaches. They went from Rex Ryan to Todd Bowles, 2 great defensive coaches for you. Not such great offensive coaches, but that's where the offensive coordinator comes into play. If I'm a Jets coach, general manager, owner, whatever it is, as a fan, I want them to take Josh Rosen, but I do think that Josh Allen is a great play. I think that he has the strongest arm. Something I wanted to mention is usually you have a mobile quarterback that's kind of Baker Mayfield, but he's going to be taken later. The top 3 quarterbacks have ridiculous arms this year. Darnold, Rosen, and Allen are all known for having cannons of an arm. And I mean, the game has changed a lot. Look at the Eagles. Yeah. They succeeded with Torrey Smith, who is a deep threat. Zach Ertz is a deep threat tight end. So you want a quarterback with a big arm. These mobile quarterbacks like a Johnny Manziel or a Baker Mayfield, although Johnny Manziel, we'll talk about him later in this podcast. Maybe. You'll have to see and find out. Keep listening. But,
nice tease.
This is a good move for the Jets in a sense, because I know a lot of people want us to take Saquon Barkley, or they want them to take, a Minka Fitzpatrick, who I love, Alabama fan, roll tide, baby. I know we're gonna go off into a tangent here, but they got to take a quarterback, and if I'm the Jets, I'm taking Josh Rosen.
Yeah, and another thing that one of the main reasons why they shouldn't take Barkley is, one, he might have been there at 6. I don't think he will be, but he might have been. And another thing is, you were just discussing to me off the show that the Jets, they gave up the most amount of sacks or something last year.
Yep.
So yeah, and I know taking a quarterback, that guy's still gonna get hit, but you need somebody, and this is why I like Josh Rosen, because he, by far, but even out of Darnold and Allen, he's the best pocket passer.
The only thing that scares me about him is that he brought up questions about what is he going to do after football and all this stuff, and it's like,
because he's going to do big things after football.
Yeah, and he should know that. But right now, you are entering the NFL draft. You are going to be drafted by an NFL team.
Yeah.
And a fan like myself knows you have a lot of talent. And I know I'm going to contradict myself in a little bit here, but I don't want a player on my team that's not fully invested, that's thinking about their future after football in their rookie season. Now, if you're in year 10 or in year 20 like Tom Brady, okay, maybe you can, start to look ahead as your career is coming down. But your career hasn't even started yet, and you're already overlooking it. And that's one thing that does worry me about Rosen.
Okay, yeah, no, so every single point that I've made here, you like that they boxed out the Bills. Do you think
I think the Bills trade up. I do. I think
the Bills are going to trade up with the Giants?
Yes, I think they give up both first-round picks, 12 and 22. I think they give up a first-round pick next year as well, and I think they give up a second this year and a third next year to get up to number 2. And I think they'll take Josh Rosen, and the Jets will end up with Josh Allen, who could be the best quarterback out of this draft.
Yeah, wow, yeah. No, it's not that unlikely, I guess. It's just I just don't see the Giants giving that pick up. I mean, I know they really, really like Barkley, and in my opinion, they should go after Rosen, who I think is the second best quarterback in this draft, because you really need to start thinking about replacing Eli Manning.
They should replace Eli Manning tomorrow. Eli Manning is garbage, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know we just offended a whole bunch of Giants fans out there, but
that's okay. But Eli Manning has led the league in turnovers for the last 4 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to sound like a hater, because I do hate him, and he had 2 great seasons. But really, what has he done for you since? And
were they even great seasons?
They were great second half seasons. That's what they were.
The one season they went to the Super Bowl, they were 9-7. I'm pretty sure.
They were great. He had great second halves of the season. But yeah, no, you make the point yourself. So I just don't see that happening. I mean, I saw something interesting today where Arizona was thinking about trading up to number 2, and that makes a little more sense to me. But that also sounds widely crazy as well. But
they just got Sam Bradford, although he has been injury riddled his whole career.
Yeah, they need somebody else.
Now let me ask you a question though.
Okay.
So what do you think the Jets are going to do at 3, and do you think that it will work out and we will be successful with the quarterback that we choose?
So the Jets at 3.
Or they choose. I need to stop saying we,
okay,
because I'm not part of the New York Jets.
Yeah,
although I
was going to let it slide. So I think number 1, the Cleveland Browns are going to be taking Sam Darnold. Number 2, I think the Giants are going to keep their pick, and I think they're going to take Saquon Barkley. And then number 3, the Jets, they're going to be taking Josh Rosen. And that will be a good pick. They need to not rush him out there right away. Let Teddy Bridgewater get hurt or whatever.
Or McCown.
Or McCown, yeah. No, you need to have Rosen be the 3rd string and just groom him for the year after. This is a rebuilding year. You don't want to rush him into it. If you guys are
1-15, baby.
Yeah, no, but if you guys end up going all right, 3 wins and 8 losses, or 9 losses, you're completely out. That's when you start throwing Rosen out.
That's what look at Goff.
Exactly.
Now another question for you.
Okay.
Who does Rosen remind you of? That's a quarterback in the NFL now. What kind of game similarities do you see in Rosen that other NFL quarterbacks have now?
So he's got a good pocket presence. I don't want to say the pocket presence of Drew Brees, but kind of that ability to know where because he's the kind of guy that's very aware of everything around him, just with politics and entertainment and just everything that is going on in his life. He's very aware about. So in the pocket, he has great presence. So I think he's got that kind of ability like Drew Brees. I don't think he has the arm of Drew Brees.
He's going to be a field general.
Yeah, that's kind of, he has that kind of characteristic of somebody in the league. I wouldn't say he's like anybody in the league currently right now, but he has that kind of characteristic, which is what I think is really, really good about Josh Rosen.
Well, then let me ask you a secondary question
Okay.
on this. Now, if Josh Rosen is so highly regarded, I know Sam Darnold's kind of in this boat too, but Sam Darnold had a pretty terrible year this year to his standards.
Yeah.
To his standards. Why was UCLA not as successful with Rosen if he is worth a top 3 pick?
Because
that's what also worries me.
Well, they were so if you're looking at it like that, let me just give an example of what people were saying about Carson Wentz. He got injured in a couple of games when he was at North Dakota State, and they're a Division II school, and they're known for just dominating.
Where's North Dakota?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so he gets hurt, and the backup comes in, and he actually plays better than Carson Wentz. And people are like, "Oh, look at this, Carson Wentz. If the backup does even better than him, then how is Carson Wentz going to even be that good of a quarterback when the backup's doing better and they're winning actually more games? They haven't lost a single game yet. Blah blah blah." That's the same kind of argument that I see here, where it's the whole team. College football, it's not like the pros where you need a quarterback. I mean, look at Alabama. Yeah, they've had one good quarterback in the past 10 years, but they've still won 5 national championships.
And that quarterback is now a Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, there you go. So I wouldn't worry about these teams and the regular seasons that they had. I mean, because they're still kids, first of all. I mean, they're supposed to be living up to all this hype going into the year. And when you set a certain standard for somebody and they don't make it right away, everybody starts freaking out.
Well, that's this day and age. If you don't have it now, everybody freaks out. That goes with everything.
But who is in sports that we live in right now? Name somebody that has gotten all this hype and that has surpassed it. I can only name one, and that's LeBron James.
Took him right out of my mouth.
So think about like how many people actually live up to their expectation of what they're supposed to actually do, and who surpasses that with all that kind of hype around them. You don't really get that too often. So
what would you say about Peyton Manning? This is the last question I'm going to ask you. We got to wrap this up.
Okay.
But would you say Peyton Manning surpassed what he was perceived to be before he came into the NFL? It's hard. That's a hard question.
So with Peyton Manning, I mean, you could argue, you could definitely make that argument, because I view him as the second best quarterback of all time. So
do I, right behind Brady.
Yeah. So when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, he surpassed it, but he was also, I don't know if he surpassed it, but he definitely met expectations of what he was supposed to be. He was drafted highly touted. He was going to be great, and he was great. So, but I don't know if he was extraordinarily greater than he was supposed to be.
I think not making as many Super Bowls,
not necessarily making, but just winning them.
And then winning the second one, he was kind of like half there.
Yeah,
and his defense dragged him along.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
So, but I would say that Peyton Manning hit expectations. I wouldn't say that he exceeded them.
No, but
I do think we agree.
But this all goes back to the main point that you were asking about. Why were they not great in the regular season? And it's, if you just look at the teams themselves weren't that great. I mean, if you look at Sam Darnold, I believe he lost Juju Smith-Schuster,
yes, he did,
who was a stud last year. So like, you lose your number one weapon, that's what happens. And then UCLA, they had all kinds of turmoil. I mean, they fired their coach Jim Mora this season because of
Chip Kelly's the new head coach there.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not just in a vacuum of what's going on. There's a lot of other factors happening, and I think Josh Rosen moving on to and I believe he is the New York Jets guy. He's big city, so
I hope you're right, and I hope that they really succeed with him, because as a New York Jets fan, it is just absolutely miserable when football season arrives.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
I don't want to talk about the New York Jets anymore because it's just...
What? You don't?
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
You know what I do want to talk about, though?
What's that?
I want to talk about that March Madness Sweet 16 starting tonight, and we're going to preview it for you right here next on Between the Hash Marks.
Do you have the overwhelming urge to advertise something where it'll only reach 100 people? Well, don't we have the perfect thing for you? Right here, we will sell you this 30-second spot for whatever commercial you want, as long as you let us put this music with it. This music will be by Audionautics and Jason Shaw. Isn't this music fantastic? We sure think so, and that's why we're going to make you listen to it for a few more seconds. Now, back to the greatest sports podcast ever to be conceived.
And we're back. I gotta come up with a new saying here.
Nah, man, that's good, man. It's fire.
You like it?
I like it.
All right, we'll stick with it. So we just, just a recap of what we were just talking about, even though you just listened to it about 15 seconds ago. Jets, are they gonna make the right move, pick the right quarterback?
I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Was this a good trade for them? You think so? I'm starting to think so.
Unless they choose Baker Mayfield.
If they choose Baker Mayfield,
then they're dumb.
My head is going through the wall.
Then they're dumb. Yeah.
So, and I'm done watching football for at least 2018. If the Jets choose Baker Mayfield at 3. So, and you heard it right here on Between the Hash Marks first. But moving forwards, we just had maybe the craziest NCAA tournament, the first 2 rounds, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, upset after upset after upset. They might as well just call it the upset tournament, because that's what's happening here. And Sean, give me a little breakdown of what happened here.
So we completely had one of the brackets. We have the South, the Midwest, the East, blah, blah, blah. The South bracket, which had Virginia and Cincinnati and Tennessee and Arizona. Those are the top 4 seeds in that bracket. All done. First time in NCAA history. We had an 11 seed that had a play-in game with Syracuse. I wouldn't call them a Cinderella, because everybody knows about Syracuse basketball, but they took down a TCU team that was very good, and they took down a Michigan State team, which not everybody, but a lot of people had them winning the tournament. So and we had UNC go down. A lot of people had them winning the tournament. It has been absolutely bonkers. Just some of the stuff that's been going on. We had a number one. We had. I also believe this is the fourth time that at least 3 number 1 seeds haven't made it to the Sweet 16. We had 2 number 1 seeds go down, and we had Virginia go down in the first round. We'll talk about that in a second.
That might be the biggest story of the show.
And we had Xavier go down to FSU. Xavier, they're up by like 12 or like 6 minutes left, and they have one of the biggest choke effects that you could see in the NCAA tournament. So
I saw that coming too. I don't know why. I didn't see a lot of these upsets coming, like Michigan State losing.
Yeah.
I did not see that, UNC losing. But for some reason, I just had this gut feeling that Xavier wasn't making it past.
They're a good tournament team, but they're not worthy of a number 1 seed. So yeah, no. But hey, that's why we call it March Madness.
And I wonder how much money Vegas has lost.
Well, I think Vegas is the one winning all this money.
Or that's what I mean, winning because of all these
everybody
upsets.
else that's losing.
Yeah,
the money.
I wonder how much money total has been lost by people going to Vegas, betting on all these games. This has got to be the most unpredictable tournament that we've seen.
Yeah.
One thing that really stuck out to me, though, personally, was Duke. Duke has been handling their business, just completely moving forwards in the direction that they want to move. They're being Duke basketball. They're playing Duke basketball, and we're not seeing that from a lot of the top teams in this tournament. Yeah, no,
they've completely dominated their first matchup against Iona. They completely outplayed them in the first half, and they were winning by so much. They basically rested everybody in the second half. They had longer possessions, and then the same thing in the second round against Rhode Island. A lot of people had Rhode Island in that Duke matchup as potentially being, this could be a really good game where you could see Rhode Island really giving Duke a lot of trouble, and then Duke ended up winning it. Maybe that was the case for the first 4 minutes of the game, but I was watching. I'm a huge Rhode Island fan. I turned it off. It was still in the first half, and I could just see the way Duke was dominating them with their length and their pressure. They look scary good, man. They're scary good, and the fact that they don't have to play Michigan State. I mean, I was looking forward to that Michigan State Duke matchup. I thought that was going to be one of the best matchups that we could have. We talked about it the week before. That was the premier matchup that we wanted to see. It didn't happen, but it doesn't matter because it's we like March Madness.
It's funny how we asked the question last week. Will the off court, not football, it's a basketball court, but will the off court issues with Arizona and Michigan State play a role?
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they played a role, but both teams are out.
Well, I mean, we both said no, but I mean, you have to think about it here. Like, I mean, for Arizona, they were in when the Pac-12 tournament started. They're in the heat of all of this stuff. They win the Pac-12 tournament, and then they have about a week off of like sitting around and thinking about everything. So maybe that really festered in their mind, and they're thinking about the allegations. The coach Sean Miller thinking about the allegations, not focused on the game and focused on who they're playing, which was Buffalo, and Buffalo ran them out of the gym.
And they probably overlooked Buffalo, to be honest.
Absolutely. They were probably looking ahead to the second round matchup, or sorry, they call it the round of 32 matchup because the second round is technically the first round, but whatever. But they were looking ahead to that next matchup, who would have been against Kentucky, and not worried about who they actually had to play right in front of them. And you see this happen year in and year out.
Kentucky's been a little surprised this year.
Yeah, no, Kentucky, it was funny because Kentucky, they looked like they could possibly miss the tournament maybe back in like mid-January, and then all of a sudden they had a huge win against West Virginia, and then they had another slump, and then since then they've been dominating people. They've really been running every team out of the gym as well. I think they have had like one loss in their past like 8 or 9 games, and I think that was to Florida. So.
If I'm not mistaken, they start 5 freshmen.
Yeah.
Which is just unbelievable because usually, I mean, we talked about Kentucky last week about how they had almost that perfect season back in 2014. They're a powerhouse basketball, but that hasn't been the case, as you just said, this year. They have kind of been on and off.
Exactly.
They didn't deserve a top 4 seed, in my opinion. They got the 4th seed.
They got the 5th seed.
5th seed, yeah. I'm sorry. So, yeah, it makes my point. I didn't think they deserved the top 4 seed, but right now they might have a clear-cut run right to the Final Four.
Yeah, no, they're facing off against Kansas State in the Sweet 16 matchup, and Kansas State's a 9 seed. And then the other side of that bracket is Loyola Chicago going against Nevada. Nevada's a 7 seed, and Loyola Chicago's an 11 seed. So they're the best seed remaining left in that bracket. So.
And that is the biggest surprise to me out of that bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
I can't say the whole tournament because we haven't gotten to that part yet.
Yeah, no, yeah, I would say that because everybody was overlooking Kentucky from that bracket. I know one person that picked Kentucky to win the whole freaking thing. That's because he's a Kentucky fan. He's a John Calipari fan. But yeah, so he's the only person that I know that actually picked Kentucky. Most people had them losing in that round to Arizona. If you didn't have them losing in the round to Arizona, you had them losing in this round, the Sweet 16, to Virginia. So, speaking of Virginia.
Do you want me to do the honors?
Yeah,
do you want to do the honors?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right. So basically, in all of tournament history here, 1 seeds versus 16 seeds. The 1 seed is a 135-0.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
UMBC, UMBC, right? University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Yep.
Comes in as a 16 seed.
Yeah.
Not only wins,
and they were
won by 20.
Yeah, and they were out of all the teams, I believe they were the 65th or 64th ranked team out of 68. So
we're talking about a team who lost by 40 points just a couple months prior.
Yeah.
Any team who loses by 40 points should not be in the tournament, period, in my opinion. But, I mean, they hit a buzzer beater to get into the tournament, and then they go in and they run Virginia off the floor. It wasn't a close game. What was it, 71-51, I want to say?
Yeah, it was by more than 20 points. It was.
Oh, I thought it was 20 exactly.
I mean, it might have been 20 on the dot, but it's just like
still even to hit 20 points to lose by that much as a 1 seed. It's just mind-boggling. Yeah. How did that happen? What happened to Virginia? Explain this to me.
Okay, so this is what happens in the tournament. You have teams all year round that get into the tournament because they're really good at defense and they're good at hitting the 3. So what happens when the defense falls a little bit and you're not hot from 3, you're not a good team anymore. And if you look at Virginia, they were coming into the preseason, they were not ranked at all. They weren't even considered to be a top 25 team. They ended up going on this great crazy run out of conference. I believe they only lost 1 game to West Virginia. And then they go into the ACC. The ACC is the toughest conference in all of college basketball.
You got Duke, North Carolina.
Everybody, every team that you can think of that's on the Eastern Coast that's good is in the ACC. And they went and they absolutely dominated the entire ACC. They only had 1 loss in the entire thing. And then they go on in their ACC tournament and they absolutely dominate everybody there as well. And North Carolina in the championship game, they just everybody. But what happens when you have this great defense? Like I just said, you if the defense falters a little bit. Now look, in the first half, this game was 21-21. So their defense was still there in the first half. However, UMBC ended up having 70-something points, so they gave about 50 points in the second half. That never happens to Virginia. Hasn't happened at all, I believe, to Virginia this entire season, and UMBC just caught on fire.
Now, it catches my eye, or maybe that's the wrong expression here, but Virginia, we talked about this last week too, Virginia wasn't ranked to start the season.
No.
So that makes me wonder, were they truly a number 1 overall seed? Did the NCAA bracket committee get this right?
Yeah, no, they did get this right with the number 1 overall seed because they had the best regular season by far. The teams they lost to West Virginia, who is, I believe they came in 2nd in the Big 12. They 3rd in the conference, but 2nd in the actual conference
tournament.
Yeah, exactly. They ended up losing to Kansas. Nothing.
No, Kansas is a great team.
Exactly. So that's one of their losses. I forget who the other team they lost to in the ACC, but they had 2 losses all year. I believe it was to Virginia Tech in Virginia Tech. So that's another team that made the tournament. So those are their only 2 losses.
In-state rivalry too.
And exactly. So the teams they beat Duke, they beat UNC, they beat Syracuse, they beat Louisville, they beat everybody.
They beat a lot of good teams.
So,
all right, I guess it makes more sense now. But I guess it's worth the consideration of thought because of the game they played.
Also, I would not have blamed the committee if they brought them down to a 2 seed because they did lose their best player going into I believe it was the ACC tournament. They lost their best player. He was injured. He did not play in the NCAA tournament at all. So, I mean, that I'm not creating excuses at all for Virginia, but that is what happened.
No. Your best player is your best player. If the Patriots lose Tom Brady, I mean, we did see them go 11-5, but they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
But that was also back when Matt Castle had just pretty much come out. He was kind of still a highly regarded prospect out of USC. But like any best player on your team going down, you're going to suffer. It's just going to happen.
Absolutely.
Sidney Crosby's the best player in the NHL, and he was out with concussions, concurrently pretty much, just one after another, and he's sitting out for months at a time, and the Penguins struggled mightily. They made the playoffs, but they would get knocked out first round. And then look, Sidney Crosby's back healthy for a couple of years, and then after that, they go and win 2 Stanley Cups in a row, and they're going for a third now. So that goes to your point, and I think that's a valid argument to say that Virginia did deserve the 1 seed, that their best player was hurt, and that makes the biggest difference, and I have to agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the next thing here with the NCAA tournament, I just want to talk about you talked about Duke that has been really, really impressive. I want to talk about another team that's been just as impressive, who I think is the number 1 team left in the tournament. It's Villanova. Villanova has done the same exact thing as Duke, except I think they've done it against a little bit better competition. They dominated their first game. I don't even care who I think they played Radford or whatever, but they absolutely did what you're supposed to do to Radford. Whenever you play a team like Radford, you're supposed to win by X amount of points, and they did that. This next game, they played Alabama.
Colin Sexton.
Yeah, he's going to be a lottery pick. He's a phenomenal talent. If you haven't watched him at all, you really need to go and look at his highlight tape and look at how well he dominated in the SEC tournament. He really put a number on Auburn, who was the number 1 seed for the SEC tournament. And they come into this game thinking that, hey, we have a shot to upset number 1 Villanova. UMBC just did it to Virginia. Why can't we do it to Villanova? And they get run out of the gym. I know I'm using that expression a lot, but Villanova absolutely destroys them. And it, just as impressive a fashion as Duke did to Rhode Island, Villanova, I would say, has been just as impressive as Duke has been. So, moving on. Next, the team that I would put who is the most impressive so far in this tournament. Now, I'm not saying Villanova and Duke as far as who's been the best. This is just who has impressed me. And I'm not going to give you the copycat answer of Loyola Chicago. Everybody's picking Loyola Chicago. Everybody's been impressed by them. Yes, I'm impressed by them. But the team that I have been most impressed with so far has been the Texas A&M Aggies. They had their first round game against Providence. Providence, they gave them a battle, but Texas A&M, they really shut down when they needed to. They won that game by about 8 points. And they come in the second round game, they're underdogs by about 8 or 9 points going against North Carolina. And this game is in Charlotte. So in case you didn't know, Charlotte's in North Carolina.
Yeah, it's right there for them.
So this is practically a home game for UNC. And Texas A&M absolutely destroys them, and that to me has been the most impressive win so far. And with that, you got to put that as the most impressive performance so far in this tournament. I mean, how could
I still think that goes to UMBC taking out Virginia,
but they're still not. But they're not in the tournament still, so that's why I can't
give it to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And another thing that I'm making an argument here for you actually, which is kind of weird. Because I still think UMBC's win is better, is that North Carolina is coming off 2 finals trips and coming off of a national championship. So they've got the experience, something that Virginia does not have.
It's exactly right.
And A&M was still able to I was actually out to dinner watching that. TV was right above the booth where I was, so I was catching it while I was there. And I literally was stunned because I had North Carolina going to the finals this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, just about everybody had them. I mean, I actually had them losing to Michigan. I just took that as like an upset pick just because I like to. But yeah, no, they ended up beating. I mean, I don't know if you know the score of that game, but it was 86-65. Yeah. Absolutely dominated them. And then, I mean, they have great players all around. This is a team that was highly regarded in the preseason. And then they kind of fell off because their point guard had some troubles. They had to kick him off the team. They had some locker room troubles because of that. But now, and they had a player. His name was I believe it's Robert Williams. Yeah, Robert Williams. And he actually decided to not go to the draft last year. He gambled, decided not to go to the draft, and it's looking like it's really paying out for Texas A&M and paying off for him because he's going to go to the draft next year. And Texas A&M, they look scary. They look scary good.
All right. Well, you know what? I want to ask you another question.
Okay.
Here. All right. I kind of want to ask you another question here. As we all know, we're about telling the truth here, are we not?
Yeah.
I honestly,
keeping it real.
I don't like college basketball. Just me. I do my research and follow it for this tournament, for this podcast purposes. But it's just not something that really entertains me. So I'm gonna continue to ask you questions here. The basketball college aficionado. The Sweet 16 starts tonight.
Okay.
Which team total out of all 8 matchups between tonight and tomorrow are you looking forward to the most?
What team am I looking forward to see the most?
Which matchup?
Which matchup? Okay, which matchup? So there are 2 matchups that I'm really excited for, and I was just talking about Texas A&M. Texas A&M plays Michigan. Michigan won their Big Ten tournament. That is a powerhouse matchup, and Michigan they have a great coach. They have, I mean, if you did not see that game against Houston last week where Jordan Poole hit that 3-pointer shot, absolutely phenomenal. That whole game was phenomenal. That game is going to be great. I also want to see West Virginia play Villanova. West Virginia is the team that beat Virginia, one of the only teams that beat Virginia. They're going against Villanova, who has one of the best offenses in the country. I think they have the best offense left in the tournament. And West Virginia, they play this quirky style where they press you right from the get-go. Right as soon as you inbound the ball, they're pressing you for the entire game. It's going to be extremely fun to watch, and I want to see how Villanova plays against this because Villanova is a team that has good guard play, and the good guard play can help you against this West Virginia press. So I want to see how that plays into the whole game, and if West Virginia can keep that going for the entire game going forward, because if you're pressing the entire time, you're going to get tired. You're going to commit more fouls. I want to know how that really goes down.
Now, Loyola Chicago, they, as an 11 seed, they were the biggest upset to start the tournament. That was really kind of the first upset that happened out of all. It was like a trickle-down effect kind of. But now that they're in the Sweet 16 for the first time ever, do you expect them to move on to the Elite Eight? Do you think they're going to keep on winning? Or does the fairy tale Cinderella story put the shoe on, stop here?
Yeah, no, the fairy tale ends here. The reason why Loyola did well against Miami and Tennessee is because Miami and Tennessee don't have great offenses. They're defensive teams that they can shoot the three well. They have a couple guys inside that are all right, but Miami was out there without their best player for the entire season, so they were not 100%, even though it was 100% for this year. Not what they really are. They'll actually be a better team next year. Tennessee, play the same kind of style as Miami, just a little bit better. So Loyola, a team that beat Miami in the first round, they're going against the same style in the second round with Tennessee. Same kind of result. It was basically a buzzer beater for the win. But Nevada is a team that has high offense. That they're an extremely offensive gifted team. So I think they're actually going to lose to Nevada today.
Now, who do you think has been, I know we've touched on a couple of the teams, but who do you think has been the best of them in the tournament so far?
The best
team overall. Which as a team whole, we'll get to the best player because I do want to ask you that too. But as a team whole, who's been the MVP team type tournament so far?
So yeah, no, it's got to be between Villanova and Duke. They both look like the first and the second best team, but I got to give it to Villanova because of the second round team that they beat. I think Alabama is a little bit better than Rhode Island, and they absolutely destroyed Alabama in that itself. So I definitely got to give it to Villanova. Nothing against Duke. I mean, I don't really like Duke, but
not many people do.
And I don't like that they beat Rhode Island, but like the fact that Villanova is just playing at such a high level, and the fact Villanova never takes their foot off the gas, Duke kind of does.
Well, who has been the best player overall then? Like, who would be the MVP of the tournaments right as we speak right now with all the teams remaining going into the Sweet 16?
Yeah, so I got to give it to Michael Bridges of Villanova. I mean, you can give it to Marvin Bagley. I'm not going to be upset about it. But Michael Bridges absolutely – well, he was the reason why they absolutely dominated in that game against Alabama. Marvin Bagley, he's going to go number 2 overall, number 1 overall in the draft. Michael Bridges might not go until like 13 or 14, but he's going to be drafted. But he's a player that needs to be on everybody's radar for the draft coming up. He's kind of a Kawhi Leonard type of player where he kind of do it all. He can shoot pretty well. He can play some defense. He can really drive it into the hole. Michael Bridges, to me, has been the MVP of the tournament so far.
Do you don't think DeAndre Ayton is going to go first overall in this year's draft?
So I do think I think it's going to be 8, and I think it's going to be Bagley too. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bagley goes first.
Now, just a little quick side thought that I
Okay.
actually read about Ayton is that he has red flags to NBA teams right now. Reason B,
Okay.
his work ethic.
Yeah.
And they are basing this off of the fact of the way he plays NBA 2K. Now, here's a little short story for you.
All right.
Okay, what kind of guy deserves to go first overall with a work ethic like he has? Now, I don't know if he's got a good work ethic or bad work ethic.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, honestly, that I did not watch one Arizona game this year, so I've never seen him play.
Yeah.
But he plays with the Golden State Warriors with fatigue off.
Yeah, no. So he's not all about the adversity. I see.
Yeah, and that's kind of rubbing NBA teams the wrong way. Like, all right, if you can't deal with adversity in a video game, how could you deal with it on an actual NBA floor? And I think that's kind of worth asking.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a question worth asking. But if you've seen DeAndre Ayton play, which you have not, he's an absolute freaking monster.
I believe
you
it.
see him out there. He's a man amongst boys out there, especially in the Pac-12 tournament. He was absolutely dominating all over the place. But this is a reason, not that I knew this story, but kind of the reason why I like Bagley is because you hear about. Well, and it's mostly coming from Coach K, but Coach K is telling you how awesome Bagley is, and Coach K is not really the kind of guy that just puts his name on a player who he doesn't think is going to be good.
Not very often.
The guys who he says are going to be good, they usually end up being pretty good. Kyrie Irving, you know. So I mean, yeah, that's just kind of how it is.
Now, I got one last question for you, unless you've got something else to add here.
All right.
Will we see another upset in this tournament?
Okay, so it depends on what you consider a true upset here. So I think we have Texas Tech and Purdue. I want to give you credit for picking Texas Tech. Nobody I know has picked Texas Tech to win it all, and they struggled in that first game against Stephen F. Austin.
Yep, I was watching. That was one game that I actually caught. One of a couple.
So they struggled in that game, and then they went against Florida, and I thought Florida was going to beat them by a point or two, and it happened the other way. Texas Tech actually played really well, and they won that game. They're the 3 seed going against Purdue. Now, Purdue is favored in this game, but they lost their best player in Isaac Haas, who averages about 15 points and 10 rebounds a game.
It's very funny. I used to have a friend named Isaac Haas, and I didn't think I'd meet anybody named Isaac Haas again in my life because it's just kind of an unnatural name, but here he is.
There you go. So I actually have Texas Tech beating Purdue. I think this is a clear-cut thing that Texas Tech is going to win this game, but it's a 3 seed beating a 2 seed. Is that really an upset? I don't think so. We also have, Michigan, Texas A&M. Michigan's a 3, Texas A&M is a 7. But everything that we've just learned about Texas A&M, if they beat Michigan, are you going to really be that shocked?
No.
The only games that I would consider being an upset here, if Kansas State beat Kentucky, I'd be surprised. If Loyola Chicago beat Nevada, I wouldn't be that surprised, but I guess that would be considered another upset. If Florida State beat Gonzaga, now that would be a huge upset that I don't think many people had because a lot of people,
Noles.
Yeah. A lot of people had Xavier losing in that bracket to Gonzaga and having Gonzaga maybe face off against UNC. And so that would be considered an upset. Syracuse, they have no shot against Duke. That would be a huge upset. And Clemson, they have no shot against Kansas. That would also be a huge upset.
Now, how many points do you have on your bracket for the very last question?
Yeah, hold on one second. Let me put this out here.
Now, I only ask because so many brackets have been busted, and there's not one perfect bracket left in this tournament, and I want to see how our brackets match up. Now, I can tell you that I have 80 points remaining, which I don't know how you have remaining, but I have
Are you doing it by the ESPN Tournament Challenge?
I have it on the March Madness Challenge app, and I have 38 points with 80 remaining.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're 38 points. For ESPN, they do it the first round, every correct answer you got 10. The second round you get 20. The next round you get 40. and 80 and 160, and then the final game, I believe you would get 320 if you got that correct. So with my bracket here that I had, I have 350 points, which I assume would be 35 in your bracket setup, but I have a lot of points left to get because I only have one of my Final Four teams out, and that was Virginia. And I don't even know why I picked Virginia. I don't like them at all. But I have Michigan, I have Duke, and I have West Virginia as my three other Final Four teams. And I think that yeah. So I have a lot of points left to go. I have a bracket pool that I'm doing with a bunch of people. I'm in the 43rd percentile of all brackets. So not that great, but but in my group that I'm in, I currently have the most available points to get. So if that makes sense. Now, I don't know how you want to judge that.
I've got 2 teams left in my Final Four. They're both going to play each other from the East/Midwest if they make it that far, which is Texas Tech and Duke.
Yeah.
Arizona and North Carolina have been knocked out. So my final pick cannot happen because North Carolina, Texas Tech can't happen, but I'm still going to roll strong with Texas Tech. They're going to win this thing. I'm telling you right now.
All right. Yeah, no, more power to you if they do. So coming up next, we just talked about the NCAA tournament. You know what we've been doing lately. It's the final quarter coming up next on BTH.
Do you have the overwhelming urge to advertise something where it'll only reach 100 people? Well, don't we have the perfect thing for you? Right here, we will sell you this 30-second spot for whatever commercial you want, as long as you let us put this music with it. This music will be by Audionautics and Jason Shaw. Isn't this music fantastic? We sure think so, and that's why we're going to make you listen to it for a few more seconds. Now, back to the greatest sports podcast ever to be conceived.
And welcome back to Between the Hash Marks. You know what we've been doing. You've been listening to us the whole freaking day. We had the Jets rant. Jets actually made a good decision. Yeah, Bostonian here saying Jets made a good decision, believe it or not. Then we went over the NCAA tournament. It's been a wild, wild tournament. Sweet 16 coming up. We gave you a little preview for that. Now we have the final quarter. Beginning with our first question. Giants sent Jason Pierre-Paul and a 4th rounder in 2018 to the Bucks for a 3rd round and 4th round picks, 2018 picks. The 29-year-old with less than 10 fingers, coming off of a season where he had 68 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 5 passes defended, and 2 forced fumbles. Who wins this trade? But JPP has 3 years left on his contract, only for $13 million. Is this a good move for Tampa Bay? And does this change what the Giants do at number 2 in the draft?
This does not change what the Giants do at number 2. I'm very firm about that. I think the Giants have a plan and they're set to it. As far as the first question goes, I love this move for the Bucs. They needed pass rush. They got a quarterback, Jameis Winston, although he's been wildly inconsistent. They have great wide receivers. They just locked up Mike Evans. They got Deshaun Jackson. They still got Cameron Brate. You got the up-and-coming O.J. Howard. They really needed to bring something on the defensive side of the ball. Now, they have Gerald McCoy, yes, and he's a good pass rusher. But you can't go wrong bringing in another one who has been as successful as JPP's been. And I know he's missing half a hand, but, you know, he's been successful without that half a hand so far. It really hasn't hindered his game. So I love this trade for the Bucs. I really do.
Just to add on to this a little bit, I would have been a little skeptical if the Bucs only got JPP, but they also got another draft pick in return,
a 4th rounder.
Yeah, so they essentially traded JPP for a 3rd rounder, and then they swapped 4th. So I think this is a good deal.
Yeah, I love it for them. Question number 2: the Yankees and the Red Sox. Yes, the rivalry is back. They're going to play 2 games possibly in London, a 2-game series in 2019. What are your thoughts on that? And will the Major League Baseball, especially the biggest rivalry in MLB baseball, bring the fans like the NFL does?
I think this is freaking great. I mean, baseball all over the world is a good thing. I don't think it'll draw that kind of attention in England because they're kind of caught up in soccer and rugby and cricket and whatever. Like that's cool, that's fine. But I think it'll definitely draw some sort of attention. and maybe they'll even have their own professional league if they don't already, which I don't think they do.
I don't think so either.
But no, I think this is absolutely great. It's great for baseball. It's great for expanding the league, and it's great for trying to renew this rivalry that has kind of been silent for the last couple of years.
I think it's back this year with, and we'll talk about the moving forwards. I know we keep pushing MLB back, but you know what? We're gonna get to it next week. Opening days next week, so we have to get to it. We just had so much stuff to talk about today. I just want to add to this. I think that the most of the crowd is going to be Americans who are going over to London to visit London, explore, and also see the Yankees Red Sox play. I think it'll be minimally people who are from Europe will be at that game. I just don't see it being as popular as football. But you know what? To each their own. MLB, I praise your initiation of trying to grow the game, and that's a positive sign for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I'm just a little surprised that they chose London. I'm surprised they didn't go to like somewhere in South America or Mexico or somewhere.
Where baseball's more popular.
Yeah, or maybe even Japan. But hey, to each their own, like you said. All right, next question. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the Swedish superstar, is on the verge of going to an MLS team. It's undecided what team he's thinking about going to. But does Zlatan Ibrahimovic going to the MLS, is that the big break for the MLS that they really need to be on the level of the English Premier League or La Liga?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think just one player can do that unless it's a Cristiano Ronaldo or Lionel Messi. But that being said, the MLS has always been looked at as the little brother or the little cousin to, the European leagues, the Premier League, and all those leagues over in Spain, Europe, everywhere. So he's leaving Man United.
Yeah.
The most famous, if I'm not mistaken, soccer franchise, football club, as they call it, over in Europe, to come over to the MLS. So I think it's a positive sign for Major League Soccer that they're growing in the right direction, that they're moving in the right direction, and that more stars will come with players like this coming over. And I think it's a small step, but I don't think one single player, unless it's those two players, can make the difference.
Yeah, this is a non-factor to me because we've had players that get older. He's getting older. He actually retired from Swedish soccer, so he's not playing on the national team anymore. He's only doing club team stuff. He signed like a 1 or 2 year deal with Man U. I don't even think he lived to see the whole thing out. I mean, it was terrible tensions over there, but it's going to take a Ronaldo or a Messi or some kind of homegrown star in the MLS to really get soccer rising, and it's going to take a huge push of him because we've seen David Beckham come to the Galaxy, we've seen Thierry Henry come to the New York Red Bulls, and it didn't change anything at all. So no, I don't see this being a factor at all.
Side note: do you ever see either of those two players coming to the MLS?
Yeah, no, I think they both will because in reality, the MLS is like the 8th best league in the world. So when you're in La Liga, which they're both in, which is the best league in the world, not the most popular. The English Premier League is the most popular, but La Liga, which is the Spanish league, is the best league in the world. Yeah, they'll definitely have opportunities to make millions and millions and millions of dollars in the MLS to play half of what they're doing now, and they'll still be very, very effective doing so.
Now, how many years away do you think we are from seeing a star like Ronaldo or Messi going over to the States?
6 or 7.
6 or 7 years?
Yeah.
And we're putting that towards the end of their career. Ronaldo's 31 now, I believe.
Something
so
like
that would be putting him at 37, 38.
Yeah, no, he's gonna
and Messi's 29 or 30, which would put him in his late 30s.
Maybe a year earlier for Ronaldo, but around 35, and they're going to just do like a 1 or 2 year deal in the MLS.
But you think they both end up over here?
Yeah, there's too much money to not do it.
All right. Question for you. Are the Blazers, after this ginormous win streak, a serious threat in the West? Now, I know that the Jazz had a win streak too, but they don't have a CJ McCollum and a Damian Lillard.
No. So the Blazers, they actually just had their win streak end to the Rockets, and it took a team like the Rockets, who has the best record in the NBA right now,
to take them down.
To take them down. Are they a serious threat? They're a serious threat to a team like the Rockets. But to the Warriors, and look, we don't know if Curry's going to be 100% healthy.
Or Durant.
But assuming that those players are going to be 100%, I'm going to have to say I firmly believe the Blazers are the 3rd best team in the Western Conference right now. I put the Spurs at 4 actually, even without Kawhi Leonard. But the Blazers, They're a team that can take down anybody in the West. They can shoot with anybody, but they also have the same kind of problem where if CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard aren't hitting those threes,
Then they kind of go soft.
Yeah, I don't really like their chances. They have some good down low presence with Yusuf Nurkic, and they have some good players coming off the bench. They have Evan Turner as well. Evan Turner's a good role player, but they're a really good team. They're probably like the 5th best team in the NBA. But no, I don't think they're going to give the Rockets or the Warriors any true scare. And honestly, I think they would currently match up with the Pelicans right now, and I could see the Pelicans giving them a good run for their money.
It's just a shame that they're over in the West, because if they were in the East, they would be the number 1 seed, in my opinion. They are that good. Damian Lillard is that good, but he just doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, nor do the Blazers, because they're over in Portland.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sam Darnold decides to play during his rainy pro day instead of canceling it. He absolutely kills it. Are you impressed?
I am. I actually am, because he did not have a great season this year. He threw a lot of interceptions. He was turning the ball over. He was a fumble machine, too.
I think he led all of college football in fumbles.
And I think in turnovers, too.
Yeah.
So he just did not have a good season. It was almost as if he should have just gone back to college so he could have reimbursed his draft stock. But here he is. He's going to go number 1 overall, and he had a hell of a pro day in the downpouring rain for most of it. Very impressive. Very impressed with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, me too. I would say it would impress me more if he did it in the wind, if it was windy rain or rainy windy, whatever you want to say. But no, there's plenty of quarterbacks that cannot throw in the rain at all, and he proved that he could. And also, I think this shows how good of a teammate he is. I've heard that he did this because he could have canceled and it would have been fine, but he had a lot of teammates that were doing pro days as well, and he didn't want to let them down. He didn't want to mess up their workout schedule, their eating schedule, their training schedule. So he wanted to go out there and perform for his USC teammates.
And I appreciate that. And Sam Darnold, you just gained that much more respect from me.
Yeah.
Moving forwards, I mentioned this before. I kind of gave it a little tease. Johnny Manziel showcased his talents for the first time since the Browns waived him in 2016 at the University of San Diego's Pro Day. Does this mean anything?
No.
No, it doesn't. You're right.
Yeah, that's it.
Next question.
All right. LeBron just had an insane performance against the East leading Toronto Raptors. 35 points, 17 assists, 0 turnovers. First ever player with that kind of stat line. Are you impressed?
I am. I'm very impressed. Have 17 assists, no turnovers. You're passing the ball. You don't physically are not putting it in the basket every time. You're giving it to other players, which leads to the opportunity for turnovers. To have none throughout the whole game, to have 35 points on top of that. Very impressed. Although I shouldn't be. He's the best player in the world, but definitely not the best player of all time.
You're funny. That's another conversation for another day. But I also want to mention that this stat line wasn't in a loss or it wasn't in a blowout win. It was in a game that they were losing by a lot and came back and won. And a lot of this was clutch. It was a clutch performance. It was just some ridiculously nice passes to Kevin Love. Kevin Love actually made some of those shots too, which actually, helps the team win if he can actually hit his shots. So yeah, no, I'm very impressed. I would say his defense has slightly declined over the years, but his offensive game has never been better than it is right now.
I was going to say, and this sounds cliche because I'm comparing him to another great, but he kind of reminds me of Tom Brady because I feel like they're getting better as they're getting older instead of vice versa.
Yeah.
So LeBron seems to get better every year. Looks like he can play till he's 50. He's a freak of nature, and it's very impressive. I'm very, very, very impressed with LeBron James. Congratulations on having a stat line that nobody's ever had before. Dwight Howard had 32 points, 30 rebounds. The NBA's first 30-30 game in 8 years. Where has this been?
Yeah, no, this is the most frustrating thing about Dwight Howard because this year he's averaging about 17 and 12. Very good season. He's quietly averaging 17 and 12. If he was on a competitive team, everybody would be like, wow, he's the second or third best player on this team. He's doing really well. But he's playing for the Charlotte Hornets, who him and Kemba Walker just haven't been able to figure it out. They're not knocked out of the playoffs yet. But if they win all the rest of their games, and I think whoever is the AC, I think it's Milwaukee right now. I think if Milwaukee loses the rest of their games, then maybe they can make it into the playoffs. But it's so frustrating when he has these type of games that we know he's capable of, it reminds me of when he was with the Magic, and when we loved watching Dwight Howard play.
Dwight Howard is the laziest basketball player I have ever watched.
I don't know why,
in
but
my
I
entire
knew
life.
you were going to say something like this.
But it's true. How many teams have gotten rid of him because he just did not have the work ethic? I mean, plain and simple. Yes, he had a phenomenal game yesterday. It's not happening again. It's the last 30-30 game he's ever going to have. I'll tell you that right now.
All right, will Kyle Schwarber have his breakout season after the injury a couple years back?
I do think so. I think Kyle Schwarber was this top prospect coming out of the Cubs. He came back from the injury for the Cubs World Series. Then he had a down year.
Yep.
It's kind of expected.
A down year is an understatement.
Yeah, but yes, it is. But players go through those. It's called the sophomore slump. I do think Kyle Schwarber comes back. I don't think he has that pressure on him this year to come back and be that phenomenal player. I do think he has a breakout season this year. I think he hits 30 home runs, and I think he hits 85 RBIs.
What's his batting average?
His batting average will be in the 265 to 285 range.
Yeah, so,
but for a Kyle Schwarber, a catcher.
So I was wondering what you consider a breakout player, because I think he'll have similar numbers. I don't think he'll have 30, but I think maybe he'll have 30 home runs. I think
for a full season.
Yeah. So I think those numbers, I agree with that kind of stat line. I think he'll hit like 240, which I think will still be really good for him, because that'll be an upgrade of like 20, 30, 40 points from last year.
Yeah.
I think he'll have a very good season.
Will Shohei Ohtani make a difference or help the Angels make the playoffs? Or will he have a tough rookie season with all the hype and pressure surrounding him?
Yeah, no. So I think he'll definitely help them make the playoffs. But I mean, if you've seen his stat line in spring, has not been good.
No.
27 ERA, batting about 100. That's gonna take time. He'll be fine.
He's just got to adapt.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I don't think there's a ton of pressure on him. I mean, maybe in the baseball world there is, but as far as superstars go, I don't really think that's going to be a problem for him. What about you?
Time's up.
Yeah, time's up.
Time's up. You know what, though? Let me ask you one more question.
All right, one more question.
One more question. What has been the most head-scratching move in the NFL offseason this year so far?
I think the Patriots getting rid of Nate Solder. It really hasn't. Nate Solder, to me, is the best left tackle in the game, if not the best, top 2 or 3. And they got rid of him. I understand he would have been a lot of money to re-sign. I know it's not the Patriot way, but the Patriot way is Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and protecting Tom Brady. Who's going to protect Tom Brady?
Could this be the end of Tom Brady's career?
Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you?
I would love it. Although I respect the hell out of him. I do. Tom Brady's greatest of all time. He is the definition of GOAT. So
what's your most baffling move?
My most baffling move?
Yeah.
Honestly, it sounds crazy, but the Vikings signing Kirk Cousins. They had something going. And now I'm not saying because he didn't sign with the Jets. Because I'm happy. I'm happy that he didn't sign with the Jets.
Now you are.
At this point, yes. But they had something going with Case Keenum. Case Keenum had a repertoire with the wide receivers, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. They had something going there. Why? Don't fix something if it ain't broke.
Okay.
And I think that they went out and tried to fix something that wasn't broke, and I think they broke it. And I think they're going to take a huge step back, which I said last week. The Vikings will not make the playoffs because of that. Mark my words. But I do want to hinge off of that into something new that we're going to try to start doing at the end of each show. Now, at the end of each show, we're going to try to give you something called the crazy thought or crazy stat of the week. Something crazy that we heard or saw. Does not have to be sports related, and that's why we kind of are bouncing off. We don't know what the name of the segment's going to be.
Not yet.
We actually weren't going to start it today, but I saw something that I just thought needed to be mentioned, and this was the perfect time to start the segment.
Yep.
The NFL you do not see a lot of trades in the NFL, let alone superstars or stars or good players moving teams. This is how many players were traded in this offseason so far in 2018, and some of them are stars. Let's count. Jason Pierre-Paul.
1.
Tyrod Taylor.
2.
Marcus Peters.
3.
Aqib Talib.
4.
Danny Shelton.
5.
Demarius Randall.
6.
Deshaun Kaiser.
7.
Jarvis Landry.
8.
Robert Quinn.
9.
Daryl Worley.
10.
Torrey Smith.
11.
Alec Ogletree.
12.
Michael Bennett.
13.
Alex Smith.
14.
Kendall Fuller.
15.
Cordy Glenn.
16.
Also a great left tackle. Cordell Patterson,
17.
Jason McCourty.
18.
18 players have been traded in this year's NFL offseason, which is a lot
It's
for
a
the
huge
NFL.
amount.
And you got players like Jason Pierre-Paul, who was a superstar. He's kind of more of just a good player at this point. You have Tyrod Taylor. He's a good player. Marcus Peters. He could be a superstar cornerback if he didn't have such antics on the field and off the field. Keep Talib. He is still a great cornerback. I mean, Jarvis Landry. We're talking about a first-team All-Pro player here.
Yeah.
A 3-time Pro Bowler. Kendall Fuller, Cordy Glenn. Who trades left tackles that are good? This does not happen, and that is my crazy thought of the week. But next week, as I mentioned, we are going to jump right into the MLB not preseason.
Yeah, well, it's going to be preseason. What we think is going to happen because we're doing it before the season starts.
Okay,
So.
the opening day is next Thursday, March 29th. We are going to bring the cast to you before Thursday, and we're going to dive into the MLB, who's going to be the NL and AL MVPs, who is going to win the batting title, who is going to win the Cy Young Award winners, who is going to be first in the divisions, who are going to be the wild card teams, and who's going to be in the playoffs, and who is going to win the World Series. You'll find out next week right here on BTH.